What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is going to be my Forma building guide for this month's Hall of Forms featuring Ashnard, Halloween Ilyana, Dancer Nephenee and Bright Sanaki. So I'll be going over the best options and the best skills you could obtain on them to get the bang for your buck in this Hall of Forms, and I'll also go over my opinion on these Forma units and if they're worth your Forma Soul or not, especially if you're a free-to-play player because we have limited Forma Souls. I make these videos every month for every Hall of Forms, so if you do enjoy these guides, then make sure to absolutely go mad on the like and subscribe button just like Ashnard. And with that said, let us begin. So if you have any kind of doubt regarding Forma units or Forma Souls, make sure to check out my comprehensive Forma guide linked in the description. And before we begin, it's very important for you to know that this Hall of Forms is going to be having skills up to Dawning Reality plus Sniffle Banner and the Uller Mythic Banner, which means that Flow Refresh, Defense Res Catch, Frenzy, Speed Res Solo 4 are all going to be available in the Hall of Forms pool because R8A was the last added Grail unit. With that out of the way, let us begin with our first unit. So in my opinion, Halloween Ilyana is definitely the star of this batch because she's just a very solid ranged armor unit, and she is going to be functioning really well as a far save armor unit, mainly because of the fact that she's essentially a blue Henriette. So here is the stat comparison. We can get one merge on Halloween Ilyana through the Divine Code section without spending any kind of orbs, so that is extremely good if you decide to get Forma Ilyana. And after the first merge and the Dragon Flowers, you have this kind of Ilyana, then we have got Henriette. Not really that easy to merge up a Henriette. They both use the Bloom weapons. And as you can see, Ilyana has got pretty much the same resistance, bulk, attack. She does have 4 less points of defense, which could come into the play as you'll see later on, but she's got a bit extra HP and a bit more speed, which can definitely change some matchups as well. Now, the biggest difference between these two is the fact that Ilyana is blue, which means that she can just shrug off any kind of red threat like Dual Lift, Legendary Lilina, and stuff like that. Even some green mages like Winter Bernadetta. So, like, green range units are not going to be that common, and Ilyana can still take on many of them. And Ilyana does suffer a bit against the physical units, as you'll see. Henriette has got neutral matchup against threats like Dual Lift and Legendary Lilina, but still she can take them on. She can also take on Reinhardt and stuff like that, but she'll have better matchup against green threats like Wrath and Python, which will definitely annoy Ilyana. But ultimately, at the end of the day, both of these are really good range armor units who can make use of Far Save. Halloween Ilyana is going to be for the players more so who do not have Henriette or were not able to get Far Save on any other unit. If you have like Far Save Felix or Far Save Brave Hector or something like that, then Halloween Ilyana is not really going to be that much incentivizing to you. But still, she is a pretty solid Far Save armor unit in her own right because of the blue color and the fact that her stat spread is pretty min-maxed. So she's overall a solid option if you do not have any Far Save unit and you struggle in the light season against Note, Cav lines, and cavalry threats in general. So she can help you with that Far Save tanking. And I'll also go over the calculations of how she does in ether raids later on. As we have gotten units like Winter Jafar and Winter Nino, I've always said that they're gonna be better Far Save units, and I also said that Halloween Ilyana might be a pick, and here she is finally. So she's definitely gonna be worthy of free-to-play Forma Soul for many people who lack Far Save. I'm probably gonna be considering her as well for my free-to-play account, but I don't really use save balls that much. So still, like, pretty solid option overall. Now, just because I say that a unit is good doesn't really mean that you need to invest into that right away. It's just that I need to provide my opinion, the builds, and also the calculations, and then you can come to your own conclusion, which is the best kind of conclusion that you can reach, which is on your own by using this kind of information. So that is Halloween Ilyana, pretty solid at her role and definitely one of the best Forma units that we have got in these lineups recently, and she's really amazing at her role. So let's begin with her builds. So there are 3 kinds of effects which you need to keep in mind. The guard effect from the stance skills or crafty fighter, the dull effect from distant defense, and then we have got the debuff handling with either the unity skill or slick fighter. You need to choose which one you want to go for. So as for the weapon, Pack Blooms Plus is basically going to be the best weapon for Halloween Ilyana. I mean, you can easily get this from Valentine Veronica, but you could save some feathers in the process and even some grails by just getting this in Hall of Forms. But you could also get some other rare, weapons like maybe Flora Guide, but at the end of the day, Halloween Ilyana absolutely wants this weapon, so you might as well get it. Blue Flame is going to be a pretty nice option because she is a save unit and she can easily trigger the condition of Blue Flame. and she is slow enough to the point where she can easily get doubled and trigger blue flame. So like I said before, you need to focus on the 3 effects which you want to get. The first build, I personally prefer a bit more because it has got Mirror Stance 3, which gives you the guard effect, and Slick Fighter protects you against the debuffs. And then we can just run Distant Defense as the Sacred Seal. So ultimately you want to run Iceberg after you get the Forma unit. We're just trying to get Blue Flame because it's a rare skill. The second build is pretty similar to what you will see on a standard Henriette with Distant Defense 4. So Distant Defense 4 can come into the play because just, negating the buffs of the opponent is really good, because many times they're going to be facing units like Duo Peony, Legendary Sigurd, who can buff up his entire team. So against those kinds of threats, Distant Defense 4 comes into the play where you can stop the buffs of the opponent and just simply ignore them. So it definitely has its usage, and I personally use the same build on Henriette, and she does a fantastic job if you've seen my Aether Raids videos. So this is also a very good option. And then finally we've got Attack Res Unity and Crafty Fighter. So Unity skill gives you a way of dealing with debuffs, and then Crafty Fighter can pretty much get you the guard effect, which is a really good thing for a slow tank like Ilyana, who's gonna get doubled a lot. And many threats in Aether Raids are especially going to be having 2-turn special. So having that guard effect can definitely go a long way. So these are the main 3 builds you can use on Ilyana. This is still going to be good even outside of Aether Raids. If you just like Ilyana and you want to get her, then this is still going to be pretty nice. But especially for Aether Raids, these builds are going to be doing a pretty nice job for a Savior unit. So let's move on to the calculations to see how she does in action against these, dark teams. So here we have got these units. All of the non-mythic units have got buffs from Note and 1 Triandra. And then here's our +1 merge Halloween Ilyana with 14 Dragon Flowers and no, boon, no trade fruits used. And then she's got quad mythic buff from Peony, Air, Dagger, and Milla. So ideally with the save teams, you want to have the max amount of bulk, so increasing their HP is really good. And as you can see, she deals with Dual Lift, Legendary Lilina, even green dancers like Triandra, Duo Peony pretty well. Reinhardt is not really that big of a deal. Even a green unit like Winter Bernadetta with a stacked build is not really going to be that much of an issue for our Halloween Ilyana because she has got really high HP. And then we can see that Selena is also not a problem. With these kinds of armor mages, when you're using them as a far save unit, it's a big boon to just have that immunity towards Wind Sweep, which other far save units like Brave Hector, for example, are not going to be having. So that is pretty fantastic. But then we move on to the matchups, which can be problematic for her, like against Wrath and Python. These 2 Green Bow Cavaliers are pretty common, so you need to watch out for these. And then we have got the new Cyan Leaf, which can also be a super annoying unit because of the miracle built into his weapon. Even Legendary Byleth is not able to kill this kind of Halloween Ilyana, so that is a very solid thing, but still he will damage your far save unit quite a bit. So your main objective with a far save unit or save units in general should be to have a lot of bulk so that you can take on a number of opponents at the same time, because you can not really choose your opponents who's going to be attacking you or not for the most part. So having this kind of bulk is extremely good. Halloween Ilyana is a pretty solid far save armor unit, and even if you don't really care about Aether Raids, she's still going to be a pretty solid unit at that role. And for a while, I don't really see any kind of far save unit who could do it better than her, unless we get someone like Winter Felix or something like that in the 3 houses Hall of Forms, which might actually happen. And Felix is just easily mergeable, so he just has a lot more speed and can also have the bulk. So he's going to be someone who you could look out for as well if you're looking for a far save armor unit. But at this moment, Halloween Ilyana does it the best compared to all of the other Hall of Forms armor units who could obtain far save. Ashnard is also going to be a star of dispatch after Halloween Ilyana because of the fact that he's a really popular merge project and he's still a pretty good free-to-play unit overall with his min-max stat spread. And many times people think that going after these Grail units is a lot of waste of your Forma Soul. But the thing is that you can get expensive skills on these units and also save the Grails in plus and merging these kinds of units. So I don't really think it's a waste because many of these Grail units do not come with the optimal base kit, so you need a lot of expensive skills which will take a lot of orbs, and you can just mitigate that entire process by using a Forma Soul. And that is true for Ashnard because Ashnard definitely needs a lot of premium skills. So Ashnard does have Gurgurant, which gives him the IO shield built into it, and also has the attack defense rain built into it essentially. So that can make him pretty bulky, and this kind of debuff is in combat, which he gets from his weapon. So this can stack up with other rain skills and trace skills and stuff like that. So you can definitely get pretty bulky by having these kinds of in combat attack debuffs on the opponent and still hit pretty hard because of the defense debuffs. Overall, Ashnard is still a pretty nice free-to-play unit, but as we move on to the metagame, a lot of times he's going to be struggling in combat against many of the modern threats because he needs a lot more like effects in his weapons in general, and he has to depend on quick repose to double in the enemy phase because of his low speed. But still, nonetheless, he's going to be a pretty nice free-to-play option for people who want to build up a Grail unit. And if you're a big fan of Ashnard and if you're trying to plus and merge him, then you should definitely try to go for this Forma Soul because he needs a lot of expensive fodder. And if you have a plus on Ashnard already and you don't really have the premium skills, then still it could be worth it. But keep in mind that you'll have to use your trait fruit after you have merged your existing Ashnard into the Forma Ashnard. So with that said, let us go over his builds and see what he can run. So the first build is going to be the ideal build for him in my opinion, which is going to be universally useful for any kind of game mode, and it's especially really good in Arena if you have R-Dual Flying 4 on him. I feel like Ashnard does the best in Arena compared to Aetherites as far as competitive game modes are concerned, but still, even if you don't really care about competitive game modes, this first build is going to be the ideal build. For his weapon, it doesn't really matter what you go for. Ultimately, he's going to be using his preferred weapon after you get him. And because he already gets that weapon, you can just go with something that is hard to get and is maybe looking good on him aesthetically. So it's all about the aesthetics, honestly, with his weapon that you want to go for in Hall of Forms. And then for his special, Blue Flame and Ruptured Sky are going to be the two options. I like Blue Flame a lot more because Ruptured Sky does require your enemy to have attack stat, and with his preferred weapon, with the Trace skill or Wyvern Flight or with a Rain skill, you're going to be debuffing your opponent's attack by quite a lot. So it does reduce the damage which you can get from Ruptured Sky, but still it's a pretty nice low cooldown special which can be helpful. Blue Flame is also pretty nice because he's going to get doubled almost always, but he does need to be near an ally to get the full effect out of Blue Flame. So both of these are pretty good options. I just prefer Blue Flame personally. And for his slotted distant counter is pretty much his best option because he's got fantastic mixed bulk, so you definitely want to have that. And for slot B, I strongly feel that attack defense near Trace is his best option. Now it might seem like it's a really weird option on an enemy phase unit because Trace skills are usually used in player phase, but keep in mind that the debuff are also going to be present in the enemy phase, so that makes him really flexible because he can get those debuffs a lot easily compared to Wyvern Flight build. And he can also have the Canto, and Ashnard can still hit pretty decently hard in the player phase, so that can help him just retreat back with Canto and also, you know, just have more flexibility with his movement. So flying units don't have a lot of options personally, but Near Trace is a really rare one, and it's also pretty amazing with his overall playstyle, adding to the in-combat attack and defense debuff. His Slot C skill is best used with attack defense range, so make sure to have that. So the first build is basically going to be the ideal build, and then the second build you can use Wyvern Flight, but unfortunately Ashnard doesn't have the highest speed stat to make use of this, so you need to commit for max investment with speed boon and also speed support from our allies to make sure that he can trigger Wyvern Flight against a lot of the units. It can give him a lot more, you know, debuffs in combat compared to the Near Trace skill, but keep in mind it's going to be pretty hard to trigger this because Wyvern Flight takes visible defense and visible speed stat into the account, and again that's going to be a bit hard for you at times with his low speed stat. So this is something you should definitely try to do only if you have him at max investment and you're a really dedicated Ashnard fan. If not, then attack defense Near Trace is pretty much the best option. The third build is for the people who have already invested into him with distant counter or like attack defense rain. So you could try to get some alternate option for Slot A and Slot C in form of attack defense catch and attack defense menace. So menace skills do have really fantastic synergy with the cat skills, and this can give him a lot of throughput with attack stat and also give him bulk in both phases. So cat skill can work out in the Slot A, and if you already have rain, then menace skill is pretty much the next best option, which you can utilize in a Slot C. So Ashnard's options are pretty straightforward. The first build is something that you should go for. but if you have other options available, then the second and the third build could also help you. Nephenee is a infantry bow archer, and she's pretty unique in that class type, and she's the only Path of Radiant dancer. I don't think many free-to-play players are going to be going for her with their Forma Soul, because outside of her novelty as a unique bow infantry dancer, she doesn't really have anything too unique going on for her. If you have got fairy dancers, then they can provide you a lot more support with their dance. Nephenee just has the vanilla dance, but she still has a pretty decent stat spread for a dancer, can definitely work out with some offensive options, and does have that novelty factor to her. Because she's the only Path of Radiance dancer, and if you do have lacking roster in that game, then she could definitely help you in many of the limited hero battles. Nephenee already will come with the dance skill, so that's why you could go with some alternate option for her assist. For her weapon, there are going to be some main weapons like Spendthrift obviously, so this gives her the extra attack and also gives her the bulk, which is definitely pretty nice. And you can go with attack speed push 4 as the slotty skill. A lot of attack speed is also pretty nice with the Spendthrift bow giving you even more bulk and speed, and then she can just have a support skill like Joint Drive attack or Joint Drive speed. You can also go with the Rain Bow Plus or Coral Bow Plus depending on which one you get. Both of them are functionally same. And you can also run a cantrip skill on her slot B. Defense cantrip is already available in the Divine Code section, and attack cantrip is a bit harder to get, so that's why you could opt to go for that. For her special, Ruptured Sky and Deadeye are going to be the two main options. With Spendthrift Bow without Time Pulse, Ruptured Sky does work out fine, but you can also use Deadeye as an expensive special, which is really hard to get. And again, a Joint Drive skill is going to be pretty fantastic here to support your allies. Fire Sweep Bow is also an option because she can run an ideal skill and be at full HP, and this gives her a really nice option of poking up the units safely with that Fire Sweep effect. And you can run Loud Speed defense in her slot B and also have Time Pulse to make Ruptured Sky into a one-turn special. And finally, I've got this build which you can run in Aetherite's offense along with Temari Air. So Temari will debuff the attack and speed of the opponent, and Fortune Bow Plus if you can get it from Hall of Forms along with Fortress Defense Res, then you can debuff the defense and resistance of the opponent as well. So when you combine this with a Temari Air, you can basically debuff all stats of the opponents by -5. And this is extremely good if you're gonna be having some kind of unit like Mail Morgan for example, or any kind of broadly fan user who depends on the debuff of the opponents. Then in that case, Dancer Nephenee can be a pretty fantastic dancer who can provide you the debuffs, and who can also use Even Pulse Tie to just get rid of the pre-charge on units like Legendary Ilyana or Legendary Sigurd. So she has got the buffs from Peony, Air, and Dagger. And the reason why this is going to be useful mostly in the light season is because Dagger and Air give you the extra resistance to trigger Fortune Bow. You still need Phantom resistance to make sure that you can trigger this against the most amount of enemies. So this is going to be an Aetherite's offense build if you want to use her as a support dancer with Fortune Bow. But other than that, you mainly want to focus on her offenses, which you can work with even as a dancer. And you can also go with some support options like the Joint Drive skills in slot C, the cantrip skill, and of course Fortune Bow being another option. The final unit in this batch is going to be Bright Sanaki, who recently got a Weapon Refine. Now her Weapon Refine isn't really the greatest, it just gives her a lot of the stats, and as you'll see over the time, the weapons and the skills which give you extra effects, unique effects, are going to be aging up better than just pure stats. So Bridal Sanaki unfortunately doesn't get any kind of speed from her Nifl Frost Flowers, which is a bit annoying after the Weapon Refine, but still she can function as a pretty amazing nuke, getting a lot of attack with this weapon and also getting a lot of resistance. So only go for this Forma unit if you're a big Sanaki fan, and if you are already investing into her as a merch project or something like that. For the most people, they're not really going to be investing into Bright Sanaki, as there are a lot of mage flyers who can do a lot better role at this than her. So let's move on to her build options. She doesn't have too many options as a ranged flyer. You can go with Nifl Frost Flowers even in the Hall of Forms, because by going with the Weapon Refine you can save some Divine Dues. So if you're low on that, then definitely try to get that Weapon Refine. And then you can have Ruptured Sky as her special. And in Slaughter you can run Attack Res Unity, which does have good synergy with her weapon because she needs to be near the allies. Or you could just go with Attack Res Push 4, which can function in both phases, but it does have the recall damage. And then at low investment, like lower merges, AR Fortress is going to be the best slot B option along with Attack Res Rain, which can help her nuking potential. The second build is for the people who have invested into Bridal Sanaki already and they are going to be making her as their merge project or already have her at plus 10 merge. So at plus 10 merge, I feel like you definitely want to invest into speed of Bridal Sanaki because she definitely wants a way of doubling naturally in both phases. So only go with this build if you have a max investment. So you can invest into her speed IV, and you can also go with Pelagian Torch as an alternate weapon because if you're a big Sanaki fan, then chances are you have already used the Divine Dews on her preferred weapon. And then you can get Ruptured Sky along with Attack Speed Catch 4. You can have Speed Resistance Fortress along with Speed Resistance Rain, and you can just stack up her nuking potential and stack up the speed on her with these kinds of skills. Outside of this, she doesn't really have any notable options that you can get. There are also going to be some other options like Attack Speed Solo, Attack Speed Push 4, but I feel like this is pretty much going to be the better options that you can get from Holo Forms if you're able to get them. So her builds are pretty straightforward in terms of a Forma unit. And yeah, this time we definitely have a pretty nice Holo Forms patch, but next month we're going to be having Radiant Dawn as the title, and the next Holo Form is either going to be setting new precedents or it's going to be completely predictable. The reason being is that Radiant Dawn has a lot of beast units and we have never really got any kind of beast unit in a Holo Forms. The reason being is probably because they cannot have access to inheritable weapons, which means that once you get a kill with them, you're basically going to be getting their preferred weapon right off the bat. So there's really not much RNG required with a beast unit who have their preferred weapons. So yeah, I don't really think that they're going to be having a beast unit in Radiant Dawn because even last time they didn't have any kind of beast unit, and generally we haven't seen any kind of beast unit, so we don't have that precedence for me to make that kind of speculation. So I feel like we're just going to be getting some human units this time, which means that there's a very strong chance of Zelgi showing up in the red color, and then in the blue color we do have options of either George or the normal Micaiah. Usually we do not get units which have resplendent versions in Holo Forms for whatever reason from what I've observed with the pattern, but maybe this is just a coincidence, and maybe because the options are so limited for Radiant Dawn, Micaiah could perhaps show up, which could be a pretty nice thing. If Blue Micaiah is not going to be showing up, then I feel like Brave Micaiah could be an option. They have definitely put Brave units in the past, like Brave Roy, Brave Lynn, and also Brave Lucina. And Brave Lucina especially was a pretty good unit even at the time of Holo Forms. So I feel like Brave Micaiah could be an option. And then Har is going to be a pretty straightforward option from the green pool as well, because the options are just so strict this time. So he could be an option, and Soth can also be an option in the colorless pool. But keep in mind, they don't necessarily have to go to the colorless pool. They can just repeat another color and have another unit. So I feel like these are going to be the most likely candidates which we might see next month. So yeah, come back to this video after we know the Holo Forms units of the next month and see if I was on point or not. So I hope you all enjoyed my Forma building guide for this month. Halloween Ilyana and Ashnard are definitely pretty nice options for Forma units, and even like Dancer Nephenee is pretty unique as a unit herself. So I feel like this batch was definitely pretty solid compared to the ones which you've got before. So make sure to share this video with your friends who are thinking of building up one of these Forma units and they want to use their Forma Soul. I definitely went in depth with the builds and options. And if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed the video, then you can support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below. And if you want to see more Holo Forms guides every single month, then make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes show my videos as many times as beast units have showed up so far in any kind of Holo Forms. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.